Politics and economics alone no longer define today's world, but rather vision, collaboration, and the creation of opportunities. Saudi Arabia today is experiencing an exceptional transformation through Vision 2030, a transformation that is not only reshaping the kingdom internally, but also redefining its presence on global stage. Our guest today is one of the key figures working at the heart of these international relations, representing a partnership that brings together Saudi Arabia and the European Union. His Excellency Christophe Farnaud, the Ambassador of the European Union to Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Oman, with extensive experience in diplomacy and international relations. In this episode, we open a conversation around international relations, Vision 2030, and the role of youth in an increasingly interconnected world. Welcome to Linda and Vision 2030 podcast, and let's start this interview. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your time and being on my podcast. It's really a pleasure for me, and I'm looking forward for our conversation today.
Again, you're most welcome. It's always a pleasure to see you. And again, addressing the young generation is extremely important, and you do it very successfully. So, Mabrouk, and I hope I can help in a way and enjoy the show.
Thank you so much. Starting with our first question, as the European Union Ambassador to Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and Oman, how would you describe your role in strengthening relations between the EU and the Kingdom?
Well, being an ambassador is a fascinating job, but the key role is that you're in between. You represent your country, or in the case of the European Union, a series of countries and institutions in Brussels, but you build bridges. You build bridges between your organization, your country, and the country where you're hosted. And currently, so Saudi Arabia, plus, as you mentioned, Oman and Bahrain. And the point is then, yes, you promote your own country, but at the same time, you want to have more relations. You want to explain the country where you stay to your own capital to make sure that these relations go further. And right now, between the European Union and the Gulf countries, and especially Saudi Arabia, we have what we call a strategic partnership. It's a big word, but what does it mean? It means that we consider that we share a lot of interests in many fields, in economy, in the political field, security, even in culture. And so, given the importance of these relations, we have decided to strengthen them at this high level. And so that's where I am. I'm one of the tools allowing to go further. So you explain, you analyze, you make proposals, you understand, and then it leads to concrete results in all the fields I described. So that's basically how it works. You have to be, on the one hand, able to draft some kind of strategies, so guidelines for actions to be led, and then be able to implement it by meeting people, by organizing meetings, by suggesting concrete projects. So that's exactly where we stand. And so it applies to the political field, including, for instance, when Saudi Arabia and the European Union want to exchange on regional crises, and currently we know there's quite a few, unfortunately. We're here to help and explain and facilitate and maybe sketch the line or the path that we could have together. In the economic field, we know that now it's a major topic, including due to the globalization. So the countries also have to do things together. So working on agreements, facilitating projects, checking what the main fields of action can be, etc., etc. And in the cultural field, nothing happens without the people.
Yes.
So that's what we call people-to-people projects. What does it mean? It means that concretely, you understand people better. You understand their mindset better if you know them better. And if you enjoy together some cultural events. And so that's what we're doing, in some concerts, in some, we have a film festival, European Film Festival every year. And it's also part of this broader strategy. So in all these fields, due to this decision we took to do things together and to do more things together, that's where we try to make a difference. And I would say that now it's even more important because, as we know, the world is changing. It's changing very fast.
Very fast, true.
For the better, but not all the time for the better. We cannot take it for granted. And most of the time, the challenges we face, be it epidemics or even security crisis, you have to face it collectively. One country cannot face it alone. And so when you have shared interests, when you have trust, it's much better to go together, not alone. And that's what we're doing also as European Union, with a long tradition of exchanges with this region and the kingdom especially. So it's extremely exciting. It keeps me very busy, but it allows to do many things. And I must say that so far it's going well. And so inshallah it will keep improving.
Bi'idhnillah. I'm glad to hear about that. So looking back at your younger self, did you ever imagine that one day you would represent the European Union in this region?
Well, yes and no. It depends on what period you refer to. Of course, as a teenager, I couldn't know I will be an ambassador one day. But even at that age, I must say I was fascinated by foreign cultures. And clearly, there were stories already about the Arab world and what it means for young Europeans. We have a long shared past, sometimes a complicated one, most of the time very positive exchanges in many ways. And Alf Leila wa Leila is a reference in France as well, for instance. So you have this cultural background. Anyway, so I was interested already. And let's say that later, when I became a diplomat, I was at once very interested in being posted in the Arab world for the same reasons, and also because the Arab world is, for centuries again, and even more so over the last decades, a key partner for Europe. What happens here has an impact there, and vice versa. So being posted in this region as a European diplomat, as a French diplomat, is extremely exciting. And then, to conclude, in the most recent past, I really wanted to see what's happening here in Saudi Arabia. Because having spent quite a number of years talking and working in this region, I am fully aware that the kingdom now is the place to be. So you see, depending on when you want to start, there was always some reasons to be here.
True. When we were talking about Saudi Arabia, what is the most thing that really impressed you about Saudi Arabia? You really loved it.
Well, it's complicated. I think right now it's the enthusiasm, the trust in change. It's because yes, Vision 2030 is an incredible project. This huge transformation in all fields with a strategy that is implemented is extremely impressive for anybody who has eyes and ears and a brain. It's striking at once. But I think what is even more important is the way people live it and are part of it,
Yes.
It's because yes, it comes with question marks because changes cannot be taken for granted. And so it's opportunities and maybe some risks. But I must say that the way the Saudi people deal with it is incredible. All my interlocutors believe in a better future for Saudi Arabia, and they are very proud of it, and they want to be part of it. And it's even more true for the young people. Young being even a bit older than you, but even your age, as far as I can see. And I think it's key, because the key point is not just about the quantitative changes, it's about the qualitative changes, the fact that people see their country differently.
Yeah,
yes,
true,
they are very proud of what's happening. And again, I don't say it in a naive way. It's they are proud because they consider that the country needed it, and that what's happening brings them more opportunities.
True.
And I think that's the main asset, because and if you compare it to many other countries in the world, I'm not sure I will say the same about some other countries. So this is the huge asset is the Saudi people themselves.
Well, also one thing I'm really proud of my country is that right now with Vision 2030, I think like most of the goals that we have set for Vision 2030, like for Saudi Arabia to happen, we have already achieved like half of it, and it's not even 2030. So that's really surprising. And I really love how the opportunities are just literally everywhere. You can just find opportunities even in the corner.
Absolutely. And it's good you say it, because not everybody is aware of it. Well, in Saudi, people know it.
Yes.
But for instance, in Europe, part of my job right now even is still to explain it.
Oh, yes.
Step by step, it is better understood and better perceived. But till recently, people were not aware of the importance of these changes.
Yeah.
And for instance, I think one of the best examples is the status of women. The empowerment of women in Saudi Arabia is incredible. And it's something that is not yet perceived as such, not that it is not perceived at all, but I mean, the importance of it is still a bit underestimated by some, and so we have to explain it. But the changes in society more broadly are incredible, just simply incredible. And I think it is good that people elsewhere realize it and can take the full measure of what it means for the country. But again, it's incredible.
Yeah, and that's what I also really focus on my podcast. It's not just for one reason, and it's to like inspire people my generation and get them to know more about the opportunities, but also for the people who are outside. So my podcast is not just about like, this is for Saudi Arabia, but it's also for you guys. Like I'm also teaching you about the opportunities right here.
Absolutely.
How can you find them and stuff like that. So our second question says, what are your key priorities today in the EU-Saudi relations, and where do you see the greatest opportunities for future cooperation?
Well, as I said earlier, given the width and the strength of the relationships, the priorities are in a way many. Not that there are too many, because if it's priorities, you have to focus on a few topics, but still, we have to deal at the same time with a series of topics. We cannot just focus on one, and it is good, but of course it means a lot of work. So in the political field, for instance, we are now working on pushing further these exchanges at high level that we have. There was a summit between the GCC countries and the European Union, which means that the big leaders, the top leaders met in Brussels in October 2024, because maybe part of your young audience is not so much aware of what the summit means. So it's a meeting at the top level. And His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman was there in October 2024. It was the first ever summit between the European Union and Saudi Arabia and the other members of the GCC. And so now we're working on the second summit, which might happen before the end of this year. And so you see, it's a way to make sure that the top leaders meet and focus together on a series of topics when they want to go further. But these political meetings, these political discussions have a very great importance for all of us. But then, based on that, then we go also on to topics. For instance, we are working together now, sharing widely common positions on trying to help and find peaceful, political, diplomatic solutions to crises like what's happening now in the Gulf with the crisis around Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. We've been working now for years on trying to find a political solution, not just peace and relief in the short term for the Palestinian people, but also building a plan to go to a political solution in the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, and etc., etc. So on all these key political topics, the Kingdom and the European Union have a constant dialogue, and it's important to keep it, because together we're stronger. So that's one thing. Then the economy, of course. The economy is key, because economy brings peace, it brings prosperity, it brings probably a better life quality for everybody. So, and it's at the heart of what's happening here with Vision 2030. So the good point is that the European Union is already the second partner of the Kingdom in trade. And even its first partner as a foreign investor in the country. A bit technical maybe for some of your viewers, but I think it's the core of the relationships. You need investment, because investment is putting money in business. So without investment, there's no business. And of course, then there's trade. Trade is selling and buying equipment. And for all of that, the European Union, which is the 27 member states, is a key player. First investor, second trade partner. So we try to improve what we're doing, and in that field we could work on many topics, but it's important to show the diversification of what's happening, which is at the heart of Vision 2030. For instance, energy is a key field where we have to do many things together. And as you know, the Saudi economy is now turning more to renewable energies, and this is something where we as Europeans have a key interest for the future. So we have many things to do together. Transport is an important field. Tourism is key. There's a lot. Tourists can come from Europe, of course, but it's not just about having European tourists. Now that the Kingdom is open, it's also having, of course, Saudi tourists going to Europe, but then building together this new priority of the Kingdom, because the Vision 2030 having defined a series of priority, tourism is one of them. We can bring expertise. we can have partnerships with European companies, etc., etc. And so, and then key sectors like the digital economy, AI, all that stuff, where the European Union collectively has also expertise, and where the Kingdom wants to put an emphasis on, are fields where we can do more together. So we try in that field, on the one hand, to build a kind of official framework for these relations. I mean, the decision makers, the political decision makers, decide together to have agreements, for instance, on energy. But then, of course, in the end, there's also the business. So helping companies to do more business. And this is why, for instance, we created 2 years ago now a Chamber of Commerce. There's a European Chamber of Commerce in Saudi Arabia. And it's basically a small institution, but very efficient in promoting relationships between Saudi business people and European business people. So you see, this is a few examples. And then, because I don't want to be too long, there's, as I mentioned earlier, the cultural field in a wide sense. It is about education and training. That's key. You do not build a new country or the future of a new era without increasing the training and the expertise of your population. And at the same time, it allows also to facilitate more cultural exchanges. So we have the priority to facilitate, for instance, the exchange of students between the Kingdom and European Union, the European Union. We have a program that is called Erasmus Plus, which is exactly that. I mean, allowing Saudi students to go and study in a European country and vice versa, to allow more European students to visit and stay in the Kingdom as students. Just one example. And we also build more strictly cultural events, as I gave a few examples earlier. It's not an anecdote. Even that is deeply political, because it strengthens the relationships between the people, so then you understand each other better, you do more things together. So you see, we have to keep in mind all these fields. And it's a great job.
All right, good to know. And what do you think about diplomat, like compared to the past? So since we know that the role of diplomat has evolved compared to the past, how do you think about this?
Yes, it's a good topic. I quite often have the same question. And so, in one way, it hasn't changed, and in another way, it has changed a lot. What hasn't changed is, in a way, the core mission. The core mission that I described earlier is that you're appointed by your government or your top leaders, and you represent your country or your organization, and you promote the interests in another country where you're acknowledged as the official representative. So it brings responsibilities, because what you say is on behalf of your top leaders. So that was the case 3 centuries ago. It's still the case. And on that, you must know what your interests are, what you want to do. And of course, you have to understand the country where you stay, because the way people think, the way people act is at the center of maybe the way they will react when you make a new proposal. So this core mission of having the official capacity to talk, and also being involved in understanding better, and then based on that bring concrete projects to a result, I mean, could have been said in the 18th century as now. But and it applies to many fields. But where there's a big change is that the conditions have changed. And it's partly because of the technology, of course. Airplanes, internet, social networks, media make it much faster in a way, then much more complicated, much more open as well. So now there's a much bigger need for public diplomacy. Even in 2 centuries ago, kings and emperors knew they had to build their image. So public diplomacy already existed. And so not only they, but also their representatives had to take into account. But now it's a daily duty. You have all the time to think about what the perception is. You have to promote your messages, you have to listen to the perception, you have to catch what goes right and what is not so right. And so, for instance, we're here today precisely in a very nice moment, but which could have been inconceivable even 50 years ago. And at the same time, I think it's really an important part of my job. Then yes, I will go back to my office and read reports and think about crisis, etc. But being here now makes sense as well, because precisely you have to reach out to a much bigger audience as well. So you see, it's faster, it's wider, and in a way, it's both more complicated and more fluid as well. So, but I would say it's at least as exciting. And there's still room for more discreet negotiations behind closed doors, but there's much more that's happening elsewhere.
Well, also when you mentioned the part you have to study about the country you're staying in, well, when you study about it, so you have to come first into the country before you become a diplomat, or you become a diplomat and stay in the country, and like while you're doing your work, you also study about the place.
No, you have to. Officially, you're a diplomat. You're appointed before you go to the country. They don't pick you up when you are in the country. No, you go to the country after being appointed.
Oh, okay.
I applied, to be precise, I applied to be appointed as the EU ambassador to Riyadh. And then when I was appointed, I came and I stayed in the country. And of course, it implies, at least in my case, you start working in the country before going there, because you have to know what it will be about. And you even have meetings in your capital before joining the country, because precisely you're given instructions about where you should lay the emphasis and what the expectations are. But I think, based on what I said earlier, that you also have to understand better once you're there. That's why you have to meet so many people. You meet them to introduce yourself, and of course you carry the flag, as we say. But at the same time, it's key to listen to people, to see what their concerns are, to see what their perceptions are, because it's true between two human beings, even if they are in the same family. Two brothers do not even always share the same views. So you can imagine between two countries, and even more so if the cultures are not identical, and they seldom are. So you must spend time understanding what's happening. And this is why, for instance, it's so important, I think, to learn the languages. You cannot do it always, but I think it's a huge asset, because you do not think the same in English, in French, in Arabic, in Chinese. The vocabulary is not the same, the grammar is not the same, and the historical background is totally different. So sometimes the same sentence uttered in different languages will have different meanings. Even if it sounds the same, it might be completely different. So it's extremely important for us to be aware of that, to avoid misunderstandings, and vice versa, to use the best way to make sure that you're understood correctly.
Well, I think your schedules as diplomat is really packed, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Well, I think it has to be, because after all that I said, can you imagine? I could work 24 hours a day. Of course, I hope not. But then it implies formal meetings, informal encounters, visiting the country, going to receptions, of course. That's a bit of a caricature for an ambassador, but yes, there are receptions and dinners. And so when you combine the most formal part and the most informal part, it's a lot. Anyway, in a way, it never stops, because even when you're on vacation, after all, you visit the country, you discover it.
I was just going to ask that.
And people can recognize you if you do your job correctly. So it's exciting, but...
So like even when you have vacation, you still have work, right? Or you never have vacations?
Unfortunately, yes. Well, let's not overdo it. You do have real vacations at times, but probably less than the average. And the separation, the distinction between work and not work, is not as valid in let's say, a normal technical job. And so it comes with advantages as well, because it's a great job. You know, what I described is very exciting in many ways, and you keep meeting interesting people and discovering new cultures, etc. But yes, it's quite demanding, because in a way you're always who you are.
Yes, true. Well, in your work, what defines success in international relations? Is it agreements, partnership, or long-term impact?
All of them.
All of them?
All of them. That's why it's a bit complicated, you know. Nowadays, even for decades, there has been, in the private sector, they use KPIs, the famous KPIs, you know, which are the criteria, technical, quantitative criteria you have to know if you are successful or not, in a way. And then you see, in the end, if the contract is signed or not, and the value of the contract. In this kind of work, part of it is like that, because yes, having high-level visits, for instance, is an achievement. But it goes far beyond, because you work on building this trust, which cannot be measured in numbers, in figures. And so it's a mix of objective, clear figures, for instance, contracts signed between companies, again, high-level visits, And there's a few technical results that can be easily checked. But there's also the most subtle part, which is this dynamic, which is this trust, which is what is ongoing in terms of exchanges. And I think part of the success is here as well. And it's not as easy to make sure if it's happened or not. And there's, when you mention long-term, there's also, the kind of long-term investment in people. When we talk, for instance, about the students going to Europe, yes, one thing is to see the numbers of the students going there, but also it's much wider. What is the perception of some elements of European culture? And there is no figure on that. It will depend on if you watch the movies or not, if you're interested or not. And there's many things that have to be taken into account. So in a way, part of the results is easy to understand. Part of it is much more uncertain.
So Saudi Arabia right now is undergoing a major transformation through Vision 2030, as we all know. From your perspective as an international partner, what makes this vision globally distinctive?
Well, I think it's one of the most spectacular programs for change in the world currently. And what strikes me the most is, again, the speed and the comprehensiveness. Speed, because I think one has hardly ever seen a country change as much in so limited a time. And I really mean it. My first time I came to Saudi Arabia was decades ago. So it was the old Saudi Arabia, and now I came back. I've been posted here for nearly 3 years, so I'm in the middle of Vision 2030, which, as you mentioned, by the way, goes even faster than expected. And so the contrast is incredible. Many things that we do daily now would not have been happening at all just a few years ago. And in terms of economic growth, economic diversification, changes in society, I mentioned now empowerment of women especially, but now the new role of sports, for instance, which is incredible. You mentioned e-games when we were talking earlier. All that is incredible. So the speed the speed is incredible, and also I mentioned comprehensiveness. And on that, I wanted to mention it because it's many people now around the world. When you talk about Saudi Arabia, are aware of this economic diversification process, even if they don't know exactly. But I think that not so many of them are aware of the changes in culture and society and in building a new national identity, which you can see, for instance, when you visit Diriyah, which is a beautiful place for tourists. But basically, the national narrative, the history of the kingdom, is now shown in a very different, new way, which I think is key for the country. And beyond that, again, the way the kingdom wants to enhance champions in sports, enhance achievements in science, etc., contribute also to build a new identity. And this, I think, is extremely fascinating. I studied history when I was younger, and so in a way it reminds of the European countries centuries ago, but for them it took centuries. What the kingdom is doing now is the same in just a few decades. So it's really something that I think will remain in history as a very, very special time.
Okay, so how has Vision 2030 influenced the way European Union collaborates with Saudi Arabia?
Well, based on what we've discussed so far, it has had a huge impact. Saudi Arabia was always a strategic partner, but it was mainly due to its geopolitical location and role, and also to, of course, the oil and gas resources. But the change now is based on this diversification that we've been mentioning, and now all these new developments in society and many fields in the economic sector. Partnerships with Europe have been evolving as well. So you have many more players, many more actors investing, exchanging, and I think politically the trend that existed has been strengthened. So it's not a revolution, but it's a very, very visible strengthening. And as for the economic exchanges, it's a completely transformation, echoing the local transformation. And as for the third part, which is about society and culture, maybe it's the most spectacular part, because the contemporary art, for instance, even in Saudi Arabia now, is very dynamic. the biennales that's been organized over the last years are wonderful. And that was something that was completely absent. So there's now even a new field where European artists or European galleries or European museums can exchange and do things with Saudi Arabia. And it is something that was barely existing just a few years ago. I'm struck, by the way, by the quality and the talent of contemporary Saudi artists.
And which sectors or areas do you believe hold the greatest potential for collaboration between Europe and Saudi Arabia within the Vision 2030 framework?
Well, a bit all the ones I've mentioned before. So economically, I think energy will be key. It has always been and will be. Although also as energy is not just providing energy on a daily basis, it's also now about energy security. We've seen over the last years that energy is not just about selling electricity or hydrogen. It's about making sure that you can have safe supplies, whatever the circumstances. So it's very strategic in many ways. So energy will remain, connectivity in general, be it transportation or more cables, or even now what is in relation to the digital services will be key. And as I said, if you take the priorities, you will see that each time there is a way for the Europeans to take part. And we mentioned earlier tourism. It is obvious. There must be more tourists both ways, but then it means also that companies both ways have to share expertise and partnerships. And at the same time, training will be of the essence. Because if you want to deal with tourism, you need to have the people who are in charge of the tourists and that do excellent services. So on that, I'm sure that the current spectacular changes here have echoes in the way the European companies and experts and schools can work here. But we could expand that to other fields, even the field of security, for instance, which is totally different. But we see that now the partnership between this region and Europe has to increase. We've been doing things together already, but probably for maritime security, the security in the Red Sea, which are very serious topics, of course, we have many things to do together. And it's handled in a different way, but it's something that we could build on.
And amid this transformation, how can Saudi youth play an active role in shaping international relations?
Well, it's the exact consequence of what we've said before. And so Saudi Arabia is being a growing role as an international player. It was always present. You know, for instance, I was mentioning the Palestinian-Israeli conflict earlier. If you look back at the last decades, initiatives were taken by the kingdom several times and remained as core elements of the discussions and potential elements for a solution. But I think it's even more true now. Saudi Arabia is at the center geographically of this very sensitive region, and at the same time it has the means to have its own policy and influence, and it has excellent relations with many key partners. So the role it's been playing now for years is extremely sensitive and important. And in that sense, even the current crisis in the Gulf confirms that this role will remain central. So for us, it's very important to have a key partnership with the kingdom, and we will keep doing it. So it's very regional, but also the wider region, including with us, and even globally, because the weight of the kingdom allows it also to play a role at a global level, which is through international fora, through initiative they can take. And as you probably know, there is a group that we call the G20, which is the convening meetings of the 20 biggest economies in the world. And so the Arab country in the G20 is Saudi Arabia. So it's an example of where they have a key role to play. So by all standards, it's a role that has been increasing, a stabilizing role, positive, and for us as Europeans, it's good news, and we have to do more things together.
And also talking about us, the youth, what are the most important skills do you believe that we should have and we need today to have a global presence and as well impact?
This is an absolutely key topic. What I said earlier looks serious, it is in a way, but what the youth can and will do is of the essence of tomorrow's world, because what we do today is for you tomorrow. You will enjoy the successes, but you will be in charge. So it's extremely important that the youth today has the capability to be in charge and to enjoy what's happening now, which means that I think your training years are essential, because what you learn today is the tools you will use tomorrow for the challenges you will have to face and for your own successes. And so there's, I would say, two key elements. One, of course, is the technical aspects. You have to learn languages, you have to acquire technical capabilities to be an engineer or a physician or whoever you want to be. But I think it's also about personality, who you want to be. And I think it's key. I would advise the youth, whether girls or boys, to really think of what they want to do. And of course, you cannot define it just in one day, it will take time. But think deeply of what you want to do. And then, based on that, define your own path. You will be helped by your parents, of course, by friends, and by what happens. But I think making your choices is extremely important. And so you see, it's a mix of being oneself as truly as you can. Trying your best, because you will need to make efforts. Don't believe that it will be just baked and presented to you. You have to build it, and sometimes it will be through difficulties and sometimes through easier successes. And again, with this wider view, because the world needs people that are able to adjust, to adapt to situations, and also can look at the world with a wide angle, because everything is changing very fast, and you must be able to embrace the changes, not fear them, not ignore them, embrace them.
All right, so right now many young people have strong ambitions, but they might lack the direction. So what advice would you give them to begin their journey towards international opportunities?
Well, based on these basic rules I've just said, and again, it has to do with your personal commitment and your basic choices before even any specific competence. So beyond that, I think to turn to the international world, first be interested in it. Look at the world, read about it, travel the world, and maybe also learn languages. Languages are more than languages. What do I mean? I mean that yes, languages brings you the vocabulary that can allow you to communicate and talk to people. And but it's more than that, because when you learn a language, you understand once again, how people think.
Yes, and I truly believe in that, to be honest, because I feel like sometimes when, because I've grew up somewhat like talking English all the time, so I think there as well as like different things between how Arab people, when they speak Arabic, they think, and how things as well feels different when you say it in English.
Yes, absolutely. It's the content itself is different, but also the way people will perceive you. You know, Nelson Mandela, the famous Nelson Mandela, used to say, when you speak to somebody a language he understands, you speak to his mind. When you speak his language, you speak to his heart. And I think it's very true, because basically then the reaction will not be the same. And for you even to understand how they will think. You know, there's many examples that show that according to the language you speak, you never say exactly the same thing. Even simple things like colors, for instance. Colors are not defined and in the same way in every language. You don't have what seems very simple is not that simple. The vast array of colors changes according to the language you use. So it's and this is very simple. So you can imagine about more complicated things.
Looking ahead, what role do you envision for Saudi youth in the global landscape over the upcoming few years?
I think there will be many things that we cannot even imagine today. So I wouldn't give a detailed list of anything. I think that the key point is to be trained in a way that you can adjust to new circumstances. So maybe an advice would be not to be too specialized too early. Specialization is necessary, but it must be against the backdrop of a wider competence and flexibility to be able to adjust to new positions. And there is the big unknown of the AI. So I think that a key point must be that the new generation have to be able to handle AI in a positive way again. There's many fears about it, and some I think are not without reason. But precisely the way to face it is to have people who, whatever their field of activity, have to be able to manage that.
Well, talking about us, the Saudi youth, and not just the Saudi youth, our generation, like the whole generation, what do you think about us? Like, how do you think about, how do you think about us? Whatever we do, how do you think about it?
I think I think youth is always great. Because it's the age of potential.
Yes.
Because the older you get, the more limited the potential.
Oh.
But the accomplishment is behind you.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't say it in a sad way, but I mean, as age comes, you've done things, and so you have less to do. Whereas at your age, everything is ahead of you. So, in the case of Saudi Arabia, for instance, I feel this enthusiasm, which I think is a huge asset. And again, it's not just here, thank God, but here especially. But more broadly, I think the new generation is about to face incredible changes. And you can read it everywhere, but we experiment it already. And it's very deep changes that probably means that the world will be completely different in a few decades than what it is here, from what it is today. And so your generation will have to adjust to it, but in fact not to adjust, because adjust in a way sounds a bit passive. You build it. So you will be in charge. You will be in charge of a key period, a key era, where changes in technologies lead to major changes in daily life. Maybe in the way knowledge is acquired will be completely different. And maybe your relation to even books and screens will be completely different, because we're in the middle of it. You know, in a way, it's a bit like when I think books appeared. It was, and printing, when books and printing appeared, we all know that, so it was more or less 15th century and after, and there Europe played a key role, by the way. People started to live completely differently. They used their memory differently. They used to talk differently. They used to record things differently. And so their relation to everything, including nature, was different. So I think we are right now in the middle of a change that might be as big as it was in the case I described. So you will be in charge, which is great. I mean, it's very exciting, but it will come with major challenges as well. So, but I'm confident that you will make it. You know, it's the same as when internet appeared. There were people who were too optimistic about it, because it was not just good news, to be honest. We know that there are excesses, but at the same time, it was a huge potential. And so we see that now the whole world has already adopted it, adjusted, and it comes with pros and cons, but basically, it's a major asset for all of us. So you will see it, but even maybe in a more spectacular way.
All right, so before
all the best wishes to all of you.
Thank you so much. So my question was, how do you think about the AI future? To be honest, yes, we're the generation of AI, but I feel like I'm not really that excited for AI to be everywhere in the future, to be honest, because I feel like it's also nice when it's in the middle, but not everywhere. I think we should also live like as how our life is meant to be, not just technology everywhere, robots and stuff. What do you think about it?
I think that you cannot stop AI, whether you like it or not. And so, and yes, it will not be completely good, and it will not be completely bad. So the question is, what do we want to make out of it, and how do we want to proceed? Because we cannot just let it go like that.
Yes.
We have to manage it. So being too fascinated would be a mistake. Rejecting it would be failure.
I guess.
So first we must try to understand it. I think that too many people do not know even exactly what they talk about. Of course, we all heard about ChatGPT and so forth and so on, but that's nothing. You know, anybody can use it just like that. But let's think about what it means in terms of control and sharing of information and influence it can have. Let's think about what we can expect from it, and so that we can master these technologies. And in that sense, we are not there yet. So we are in a phase when we must be better informed and better able to use it. And then, in the longer term, we have again to build the upcoming phases. being realistic is, on the one hand, to be still dreaming, very important. Human beings dream, and that's how you build incredible things. And at the same time, be very realistic. And AI is both at the same time. And for many of us, it's still science fiction. But the point is that it's no longer science fiction. So let's just make sure that we handle both aspects at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's not a black and white reality. It's something in between, again, unavoidable. The ones who would like to prevent it from happening are mistaken. You cannot stop it.
Yeah.
And the point is to be able to manage it, and first by knowing it a bit better. So far, it's quite, it's not the case.
Yeah. And I think AI has become part of our daily life basis. So I think we do need it, but as well, we don't have to stop it because it helps us in so many things sometimes, and it makes some things faster as well.
In medicine, for instance, that's always the example that's taken. It's a huge asset for diagnosis and even for action.
Yeah.
At the same time, there must be a human mind behind it at some point, because we must remain in control of what's happening.
Very
And
important.
there's another point, by the way. Let's not be too fascinated by AI in the sense that there is a world around us, and nature is still here. It's beautiful, sometimes dangerous, but we need it. And so, including for your generation, do not just spend too much time on these technologies. And I know it sounds a bit typical, but it's very true,
Yes.
There will never be something like a real sunset by the sea, not on your screen, and not talking to a robot, and so forth and so on.
All right. So before we can end this conversation and move on to the rapid fire questions, what message would you like to share with Saudi youth as they experience the era of Vision 2030?
Well, first, enjoy, because I think it's a huge opportunity.
Very big opportunity. True.
And second, continue being part of it. I say continue because you're already part of it, but be even more involved, because these opportunities are not just to be witnessed, it has to be built. And so it's a never-ending process. It's been announced, but after Vision 2030, there will be some Vision 2040 and so forth and so on. I don't have to speak on behalf of the Saudi authorities, but I would just say it's clear that the point is to launch a dynamic, not just to go from A to B. No, it's from A to B to C too. And so I think that's key. And so for the youth, that's very important vis-a-vis this transformation process to enjoy, be part of it, and push it further. And which means that basically that this commitment go through even more involvement in terms of training, personal investment, and opening to the world, because one of the elements I think behind Vision 2030 is the awareness of the fact that globalization is happening as well. And so if you want to be a successful actor in it, instead of just being submitted to its consequences, you have to take it in your own hands. And so that's a key point for the youth. But again, it's an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, it is. And I think especially our generation should really know how to use these opportunities, because it's not just being part of the vision, it's as well like building your future, helping you build something you have never dreamed of before. So yeah, very important. So moving on to the rapid fire questions, you have to answer very fast. Okay, so we have right now 4 questions. I believe it's 5. Oh no, it's 4. Yeah. Okay. The first question says you have to answer so fast. One word to describe Vision 2030.
Spectacular.
Book recommendations for younger generations.
So book recommendations? History books.
History books.
History books. Shall I explain or just stop it?
No, you can explain. Sure.
No, because you cannot face the future if you don't know your past. This is also very basic, but sometimes it's forgotten. If you want not just to avoid the mistakes of the past, but sometimes also to learn your lessons, and also sometimes to understand why what's happening now is happening. It always has causes, reasons. And so if you know better what happened before, you will be stronger to build your future.
Well, wait, you don't have to answer very fast for this. Well, I always hear everywhere, especially from people older than me, they always tell me that history books are really important. Like, what's so very important about it? Because I almost hear it from everywhere, especially older people.
Well, it's exactly what I've just said. You know, it's first is most of the time it's fascinating stories. Well, up to you to choose what you want to read about. But,
yeah, but wait, I also meant because like sometimes when you're reading about history, like it's not something that it was yours. Sometimes, like even if it was someone's story or something like this, or what happened in their life, like why would I read about them? Like why would I want to know something that didn't happen to me? So that's like kind of the mindset.
Well, no, first it's exciting as just a good movie, so enjoy it. But second, most of the time, it allows you to understand better today's world. And I think that was also what I wanted to say.
Yes.
You need to know the past to know the present. And knowing the present, then you face the future more positively. I don't just mean, one obvious example is, for instance, when Europeans read about the Second World War, even the First World War, you understand the enormous mistakes we collectively made. And it allows to understand what the situation is now, and inshallah, to avoid doing again the same mistakes, making the same mistakes. That's the most obvious thing. But there's many other things, you know, in the way populations evolve, and the reason why the borders of the country are what they are now, and also why people like to live the way they live. So you have to, you know, for instance, in Saudi Arabia, if you read the biography of King Abdulaziz, for instance, it will bring you a lot to understand what Saudi Arabia is today. If you haven't read about it, of course it happens anyway, but will not understand it as well, and maybe not appreciate as much as you could.
Well, I think right now you kind of inspired me. I think I really want to go to like a bookstore right now and get a history book, because you kind of really inspired me. I feel like I really want to know like what happened before, like to understand better about the present and as well the future. So I think I'm gonna do that. Okay, the rapid fire question says a word that defines the future of EU-Saudi relations.
Optimism.
Optimism. Okay.
Potential.
Potential. Okay. Lastly, if you weren't a diplomat, what would you be?
That's a very tough question. Well, first, I still would be a diplomat, I think. And because of the mix it allows you to have in your life, maybe I would say maybe an artist.
Oh, an artist.
An artist, in order to change the world, because I think it's important to want to contribute to change the world by making it more beautiful.
All right, thank you so much. It was really fun having this conversation with you. I really learned a lot from you. Thank you so much. You really inspired me, and I hope so as well my viewers and audience. Thank you so much for this opportunity to have this conversation with you.
No, thank you so much for inviting me and for sharing this conversation. You know, even I learned a lot through this exchange. That's the key point in having conversations, real conversations.
Yeah.
So thank you very much again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're done.